Fear, hugs, and frantic phone calls to parents. College students in Las Vegas forced to barricade themselves in classrooms as a gunman opens fire.
A gunman opened fire, wounding several people. Police tonight say that shooter is dead.
If you kind of pan down here on the sidewalk, actually, that's technically on the campus. You can see there's still a variety of law enforcement here, still armed, walking the campus. Now, we are seeing yet another shopper here on overhead the UNLV campus, but
there's an active shooter in our building.
I heard like 5-6 gunshots in our building. And then so we locked the door. At that moment, I actually don't know what to do, especially when I hear the gunshots coming closer.
When the gunfire started on the University of Nevada, Las Vegas campus, many students were inside class in the business school.
I'm still scared out of my mind right now, and I'm not even I'm not a person that gets scared like that.
I've been in a lockdown before, so I was mainly just worried about all the people who I was with, making sure that everyone who I knew that was a business major was safe and at home or safe and in lockdown.
The fact is, America has more mass shootings than any other high-income country in the world, and that number is rising.
Another community ripped apart by America's gun crisis.
Frustrated, worried, we know a close friend has passed.
At least 18 lives lost in the Lewiston, Maine mass shooting. The 565th mass shooting in 2023, and the deadliest so far this year, according to the National Gun Violence Archive, which defines a mass shooting as at least 4 victims shot, excluding the shooter.
Pray for the families, pray for these victims. God, things have got to change.
That grief felt across the country, time and time and time again, with more than 35,000 people killed by gun violence so far this year. Families in Monterey Park, California, still recovering from the horrific killing of 11 people at a dance hall studio that took place just 3 weeks into the new year. Flowers and pictures lining the entrance of an elementary school in Nashville after 6 people, including 3 children, were shot and killed there in March. And a community in Allen, Texas, grieving the 9 murdered at an outlet mall in May, and now calling for change. The heartbreak and anger in Lewiston, Maine also felt less than 300 miles away in Newtown, Connecticut.
We know that gun violence is preventable. We need to do more to stand up to this issue, to enact safe laws, and to create the safe communities that we all deserve.
Nicole Hockley watching another mass shooting unfold, nearly 11 years after her 6-year-old son Dylan was killed along with his 19 classmates and 6 teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
We are taking you live to Waller County, where several people were shot during a homecoming celebration for Prairie View A&M.
4 people are hurt after a shooting on the campus of Georgia State. Good Day's Lindsay Tuman just arrived there at the scene moments ago. And Lindsay, what details do you have from police about this?
Brooke, at this time we have limited details, but what I have learned from police on the scene is that 4 people were all shot over here right out the campus of Georgia State. This is on Piedmont Avenue and John Wesley Dobbs. You can see this is still an active investigation. From what police told me on the scene here, 2 of the victims were Georgia State students.
Back to the number of individuals wounded. We are told at least 15 people wounded in that shooting at a Halloween party in the city's North Lawndale neighborhood. Now, some of them were brought here to Cook County Stroger Hospital, mostly in good condition. 2 folks were taken to the hospital in critical condition, a 26-year-old woman and a 48-year-old man.
People being wheeled away on stretchers at one point. You can see multiple ambulances on scene there overnight. Witnesses say a fight broke out at a Halloween party and say things escalated quickly when one man was rejected entry at the door following the DJ's announcement that the party was coming to an end. Calls that came over police radio indicating officers may have taken at least 1 shooting suspect into custody and recovered 1 weapon. One man tells us he was at the party when shots rang out.
I was just praying, man, I hope this guy doesn't turn his gun around towards this bar.
New at noon, police in Salinas are investigating a shooting It happened Halloween night just before midnight on Chaparral Street in North Salinas.
It happened Tuesday night at a home in the 300 block of Chaparral Street. Police say more than 100 people were there that night. Witnesses say that the shooting stemmed from a verbal altercation between two men.
America armed and dangerous.
There are now some 40 million handguns.
Firearm
in this country.
injuries represent an epidemic in the United
of gun violence.
Join us in this campaign to reduce gun violence.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun.
Another mass shooting
is
in America.
A good guy
shooting rampage.
316 people are shot every single day.
Gun violence, a topic that's deeply divisive in America, a country where guns are embedded in everyday life. As of 2018, it was estimated that there are approximately 400 million civilian-owned guns in America. That means there are more guns than there are people or cars in the U.S. By comparison, Americans own more guns per capita than any other country, accounting for about 40% of the world's total gun ownership. And that number is likely to increase. Since 2008, the U.S. firearm industry's worth grew 232%, making it a $63.5 billion industry in 2020. But the reason for division over gun ownership isn't just because the U.S. owns the most guns. It's because it also has the highest rate of mass shootings, gun-related homicides, and firearm suicides among similarly developed nations.
Our politics is just not being incentivized to pay attention to the things that would actually reduce gun violence.
This is the job of public health, to help the most vulnerable, to stand up for them.
So how did we get here? How has the right to own a gun become a divisive American ideal? And of all the proposed solutions, what do experts say could effectively reduce gun violence in the U.S.?
We need rescue inside the auditorium, multiple victims.
The United States has a problem with gun violence.
We hold the victims in our hearts.
Perhaps we may never fully understand it.
We talk about it after mass shootings, but it's much larger and more complicated than those debates allow. Here's what you need to know about the state of gun violence in America. It's true that the U.S. sees many more mass shootings than these other developed countries. Between 2000 and 2014, there were 133 mass shootings in public populated places. That's excluding gang violence and terrorism. Of course, the U.S. is a much larger country, but if you adjust for population size, it still ranks higher. Of these countries, Finland is next, with just 2 shootings over 14 years, but a much, much smaller population. And this type of tragedy seems to be happening more often in the U.S. Each of these squares represents a public mass shooting with 4 or more fatalities. Before 2011, they happened 6 months apart on average. But since then, only 2 months go by between them.
I hope and pray that I don't have to come out again during my tenure as president to offer my condolences to families in these circumstances.
That was October 1st, 2015. And just about 2 months later,
yesterday, a tragedy occurred in San Bernardino. Our first order of business is to send our thoughts and prayers to the families of those who've been killed.
Public mass shootings get all the attention because they're often so indiscriminate. But the truth is, mass shootings are unlike most gun deaths in America. Here's how it breaks down. According to the most recent data, 92 people are killed with guns every day on average. About 30 of those are homicides, of which maybe 1.5 at most can be considered part of mass shootings. Most of those killed, 58 people a day, are suicides. The rest are accidental shootings, police actions, and undetermined incidents. Those suicides, they show up in international comparisons too. These are the 10 countries ranked highest on human development by the UN. The US has the highest suicide rate among them, and this darker bar shows how many of those are with guns. Some people think suicide isn't really relevant to the gun issue.
But to go and think that some type of gun control regulations that are being talked about are going to stop somebody from committing suicide when there's so many other ways for people to commit suicide.
But the methods that people use are important because suicide attempts often stem from temporary crises. The vast majority of people who survive suicide attempts don't end up dying from suicide, but guns make it nearly impossible to get that second chance.
When we shift to mass shootings, they only account for a small percentage of gun deaths each year. but they've also become more common and more deadly in recent years.
The politics of gun violence has, over the last couple decades, really centered around things like mass shootings, terrorism, accidental gun deaths in small children. But if you actually go and look at the data, again, what you find is that those are not making up the majority of gun violence deaths. They're not even making up a significant minority.
ABC News combined forces with the Gun Violence Archive to document a week's worth of gun violence and found that in a single week in July 2021, there were more than 1,000 incidents of gun violence across 47 states. That's about 1 every 10 minutes. And in those incidents, more than 400 people were killed. Despite the gap in federal research, limited data shows that implementation of certain gun regulations and laws have been effective at a state level. For example, in Indiana, the red flag law has been associated with a 7.5% reduction in firearm suicides a decade after it was implemented. Even other methods, like permit laws or ceasefire programs, have had some success in individual cities. But the research is mixed. One study found that states can reduce homicide rates just by implementing 3 laws.
Universal background checks are laws that prevent anyone with a criminal record from buying a weapon. May issue laws give discretion to the police to actually refuse to issue a concealed carry permit. Valid misdemeanor laws basically prevent someone who has been convicted of an interpersonal violence misdemeanor from buying a gun. We found that a combination of all 3 laws reduced firearm homicide rates by 29%. In 2019, it means that 4,200 people would have been saved.
I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I believe the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the one right that's listed in the Constitution that uses that very specific affirmative language, shall not be infringed.
Well, it's also the one right that uses the phrase well-regulated.
Correct, when it's talking about the militia and the state.
By the way, just for clarity's sake, I'm not against the Second Amendment. I don't want to ban guns. But you're saying more guns makes us more safe.
Yes.
So when we got 400 million guns in the country, we had an increase and gun deaths went up. So when exactly does this curve hit that takes it down? Would 1 billion guns do it?
Let's just run those numbers, 400 million, 50,000. You're talking about less than a fraction of not even 1%, of 1/100 of a percent.
But it goes up, not down. So your argument is backwards.
But if you want, so let's come up with a solution. Okay, so one of the issues, a contributing factor, again, I believe it's the individual that is the problem.
So your solution to that is give them more guns.
Hello to you. I'm Evan Millward. We are on top of news breaking right now in the West End. Police confirm a shooting near Laurel Park about 90 minutes ago,
where we now know 6 people have been involved in a shooting, many of them juveniles. 1 has died. We have 4 that were transported to Children's Hospital, 1 to UC Medical Center. The chief of police on the scene just saying it is not humane to pull out a firearm and shoot people recklessly. She is frustrated. People are very emotional there at the scene. Again, once again, another homicide here in the heart of our city, in the West End, happening at Jones and Wade tonight. We'll continue to update you on this situation on air, on our morning show, and on WLWT.com.
Denver police investigating a shooting that left 2 people dead and hurt 5 others that happened in the Park Hill neighborhood around 3 a.m. 4 other men and 1 woman were hurt.
All I hear is like some rapid fire.
Shots rang out inside Independence Center, hitting 4 people this afternoon.
The Pierce County Sheriff's Department says this is where 6 people were shot at a party.
Police say 1 child is dead after 5 people, including 2 children, were shot at a flea market. 3 adults and 2 children were shot. It's unclear of their ages, but police believe the children were caught in the crossfire.
And that breaking news in Menor, where 3 people were killed and the suspected gunman was also found dead. In addition to the 3 victims killed, a 4th remains hospitalized tonight.
It was an all-out manhunt for the gunman police say went on a shooting rampage against his own family Saturday night.
Police are saying 4 people and the gunman. A total of 5 people are dead after a shooting that happened on a hospital campus in Tulsa. Police say the shooting happened at a medical building at St. Francis Hospital just before 6 o'clock our time.
This shooting happened on Pentagon Boulevard at this Walmart behind me.
We begin tonight with breaking news out of southern Colorado. 3 people are dead and a 4th is hurt in a shooting that put a small community on lockdown.
A deadly mass shooting sends 7 people to the hospital, and we know 2 of the men have died.
Where the victims were walking on the sidewalk, someone from inside of a vehicle fired shots hitting 5 teenagers.
Now, meanwhile, in Sampson County, an investigation is underway after a deadly shooting left 5 people dead.
Officers from our downtown area command responded to a report of a shooting.
4 people were killed, including a 1-year-old boy in a shooting in far southeast Dallas. A 5th shooting victim, a teenager, was also taken to Children's Medical Center in Dallas.
To an apparent murder-suicide Sunday afternoon. Investigators believe 5 people were already dead by the time they arrived at the home.
Of a shooting spree that left 6 people dead and 3 others injured yesterday across Austin and San Antonio.
A shot injured a 15-year-old boy in the leg inside a smoke shop. The shooter tonight is on the run.
A number of victims were transported to local hospitals. Clark County Fire Department also established a family reunification center at the Las Vegas Convention Center North Hall. Responses and tweets from organizations and officials, as you see there, reacting to the news. Traffic surrounding the area and road closures continued as the investigation was ongoing. Events such as a UNLV basketball game and a candlelight vigil for an NHB trooper that were both planned tonight have been canceled. We will be keeping you updated as more news comes in. For the Las Vegas Review Journal, I'm James Schaefer.